Good evening. I'm Miss Gadba. I'm your student's English Language Arts teacher. And this is my first year at CASA, but it's my 10th and my strangest year teaching. Tonight, I'm going to show you around our Google Classroom, as well as take you through our syllabus. So let's take a look at the Google Classroom. So this is the stream, and you might have a student who's with me for sophomore English in period 1. It's the same thing here as well. The stream does have access to the assignments. It does update with assignments that are posted for students as well as announcements. But a more organized place to find every assignment is in the classwork tab, which your student will have as well. Everything's in folders so they can find things based on whatever unit we're doing or whatever type of assignment we're doing. And that is a place to access things like materials, like the syllabus as well. I would click on the grades, but it would show you all the students' grades. And a lot of students might want to keep that private from their peers who could also watch this. So I won't click on that, but your student should have a grade tab as well. It most likely is accurate, but there are some situations in Google Classroom. It doesn't always tabulate things correctly. So for an absolutely accurate grade, you want to go to Q, but if you're just looking to keep track of whether or not your student has turned in their work, then Google Classroom is fairly effective at that. If a student has a missing assignment, it will say missing. That means that nothing has been submitted as of whenever you're looking at it. If an assignment has been turned in, but it has not been graded by me yet, then it will say just turned in, so you know that they got it done. And if a student has a score less than full credit on an assignment, then I'll leave a comment, either through private comment or on the actual assignment. So a student knows how to improve their score. If a student has a 0 on an assignment, then a couple of things might have happened. Either they massively misunderstood the directions, in which case I would let them know through the private comment or on the document how they can improve it or where they went wrong. Or they submitted a blank document either by accident or intentionally, just to get it off of their to-do list, or accidentally marked it as done. Unfortunately, Google Classroom lets students mark assignments as done, and it does it through just a little checkbox. So it's been known to happen that sometimes students do it accidentally and then they don't realize that they didn't turn in an assignment. In which case they receive a comment from me too, that this assignment is blank or there's nothing here that's turned in. So they should get some kind of feedback letting them know that there's something to fix if they're keeping track of their grade at all on here, which is very much recommended, is to take a look at each assignment as you get it back so you know how you did and where you potentially went wrong. All right, taking a look at the syllabus. There's a course description at the start of the syllabus, and this was in your email as well, so you could access it. But I won't read all of that for you, but basically we cover the standard reading, writing, speaking, and listening with English Language Arts. For speaking, and it's very difficult to do that or to practice that as much as we normally would through Zoom and distance learning, but we'll do as much as we can, and then hopefully we'll practice more once we return to a hybrid model. For listening, that's also a little bit more challenging on distance learning since students can just mute me if they really wanted to. So we'll be doing as much as we can with speaking and listening, but mainly we're going to focus on writing skills and reading skills. The books that we'll be reading are Lord of the Flies and Night. We'll be starting with Lord of the Flies at the beginning of next week. Unfortunately, we do not have enough hard copies of either book at the school for students to check out. Last spring, a lot of these books did not get returned and we barely had enough copies to begin with. And then again, at the end of last term, a lot of them did not get returned. So now we really don't have enough copies of the books for students, unfortunately. We're working on that. And hopefully by the time we start reading night, we will have copies for students. But right now we don't. So if a student really wants a hard copy, back on the stream, I announced how they could get on a list to get one. They would email Mrs. Clow to be on a list to get one. I also recommended your public library would be a good resource for that as well. But there will be digital copies available to students on Google Classroom as we read. The Lord of the Flies one is pretty good. The night one, not quite as good, but still very usable. So we will still read even if we don't get the books. We've been reading short stories and nonfiction already, and we'll continue to do that. And hopefully we'll fit in some poetry before the end of the year. For writing assignments, there will be lots of little writing assignments, but the two major writing assignments will be an argumentative essay that will be a literary analysis of Lord of the Flies, and an informative research essay that will be related to night. And you should see the first one in the first semester and the second one in the second semester. Normally, I require independent reading, but it's been very challenging to enforce that with distance learning. So I'm not requiring it right now. If we do get to a hybrid model, then it will be required. But for now, it's just going to be an extra credit opportunity. So any student who is taking the time to read independently, which is highly encouraged, will have extra credit opportunities available to them at the end of the term to help boost their grade. So if your student is reading independently, they will have that opportunity available to them. For the grading scale, it's a weighted grade in this class. And to simplify things during distance learning, I decided to just put all my assignments into two categories: major assignments like essays, projects, and tests that are 60% of the grade, and minor assignments like journals and exit tickets and Google question classroom discussions for 40% of the grade. The grading breakdown is pretty standard. And I do have a goal of updating Q with the grades, transferring them from Google Classroom to Q at least once a week. That doesn't always happen, unfortunately, but I do try to make sure that students are updated on their grade and know whether or not they're in any kind of trouble academically or in danger of failing. I do accept late work, but at a penalty of 5% per day that's taken off of an assignment each day it's late. I don't really consider something late until it's missing beyond class the next day. So usually things are due at midnight for the sake of consistency, as that's what most teachers are doing right now in Google Classroom. It's their default. But as long as a student gets it in by class the next day, I'm still going to consider it on time, unless it's the end of a grading period and I have to have it cut off. I do accept students resubmitting work as many times as they want to. If they're not happy with their grade, they can resubmit work for me to grade. Again, so they can redo it until they're happy. Although I recommend that if a student has reattempted an assignment 3 times or more without being successful with that assignment, that they seek help. Unfortunately, plagiarism is a really big issue in all language arts classes due to the fact that most students really hate writing and Google has so many resources available. But if a student does plagiarize, then it is a 0 on that assignment and they lose the ability to resubmit or reattempt an assignment. If it's a regular problem on assignments, then parents and guardians are contacted as well as administration. For our distance learning expectations, we'll be on Zoom for 30 minutes at the beginning of each class period. And students are expected to participate as much as they can and to be engaged and respectful during that time. And then after that synchronous time ends, they will have work to complete on their own. Either a small assignment to be completed that day or something longer and more and ongoing that they'll be expected to work on that day. And for extra help, I strongly recommend that students just stay at the end of the 30 minutes of Zoom. I'm always available to help right then, and I stick around in case students need help or have questions. After that point, or even if I've closed the Zoom because everybody left, students can still just email me or message me on Google Classroom for help. During that time, I can get back onto the Zoom if they want. And if they need help beyond our scheduled class period, then my schedule is pretty flexible. Or if you have questions beyond or at any point, or want help with something with your student at any point, message me and I can usually be available. Email is the best way to get a hold of me, but students have used private comment. That tends to delay a little bit. So private comment on Google is not preferred, but it still works. But email is definitely the best way. All right, so if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to email me. And I think that's it. Have a good night.